Hey, what's up, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Finding Your Purpose. I hope everybody is good out there today. And with that being said, don't forget to like, subscribe, and all that good stuff, and follow me on my other social media platforms. Well, let's get into it. Today, I kind of wanted to do a movie review because I've been watching movies when I have the time, um, and I watch them on a lot of different apps. And this movie I wanted to talk about, I watched it on Netflix. Some of you probably heard of it. It's called The Sun. And it really touched me when I watched it because it I don't want to say hits close to home, but it kind of relates to a lot of the stuff that we have going on now. And that's why I kind of wanted to talk about it. Excuse me if you see me wiping my eyes and all that, allergies and all that. But the show must go on, right? So, hold on. Um, so in the movie, you have this young teenage boy who's struggling with things. His mom and dad got a divorce. The dad now has a whole nother family, um, a whole nother wife, and a young son. And he feels kind of left out in a sense. So he's there with his mom, and he starts like you know having trouble in school to the point to where he's not even going to school. He leaves like he's going to school, but he doesn't even go. Well, this had happened for a few months, and they finally got a hold of his mom and told her what was going on, this and that. And so she talked to her ex-husband. She was like, "You gotta help me, this, that, and the third. He's not going to school. He's distant at home. We're not getting along. So you gotta help me." And so at first the dad's like, "Well, what's this and that?" Asking all kind of questions like, "What do you mean he's not going to school?" In a way he was kind of like pass it off to his ex-wife. And she was like, "No, you can't just call, whatever, you have to be there." So he goes and talks to his son, and the son wants to move with him. So they make that happen. But after a while, the same thing starts reoccurring with his dad. He starts not going to school, but he leaves like he's going. He's not going. And, he's kind of distant with his dad, especially the dad's, wife. You know, and to me, now, for those of you that have seen it and those of you that are going to watch it, um, to me, the new wife is kind of like standoffish to the son. And I think that that's kind of the reason why he was not really connecting. That's just in my opinion. And so, at first the dad's blind to the fact he doesn't see any of that. And it's like, dude, open up your eyes. And I feel a lot of kids nowadays struggle with a lot of that. And so after, when the dad starts to realize that, he kind of tried to push it out of him, but you can't force shit out of people. You have to talk with common sense. You have to find an angle to approach them, because not everybody understands the aggressive side of you. Some people shut down, and apparently that's what his son was doing. He didn't know how to talk to him and explain to him, that he's angry. He was suffering from, a illness. He long story short, the son was, depressed, cutting on himself and all kind of stuff, and they had to keep him in a hospital for a while, just to observe him. And then they wanted to keep him longer, because he really had an illness. And I think a lot of it too had to do with how his father just left and started his own family. And you know and how standoffish the dad's new wife was to him. And so that made it harder for him to talk about how he felt. And so they let him come home. I can't remember if he was released from the hospital or if it was like a vacay, but in reality it ended up being like the last of him, because he wasn't better. He was pretending to be better, but he really wasn't, and he ended up taking his own life. And that's why I wanted to kind of talk about that, because a lot of young people today are suffering through this type of stuff. And it doesn't have to be just because their parents are no longer together, the parents moved on. It could be from other things, like it could be a hereditary issue, and parents don't see it. A lot of them don't see it. That's why you have to pay attention to the signs. You have to pay attention to your children. I mean, this movie was such an eye opener. It's like, pay attention to the signs. And when you realize that something is a pattern, don't wait to speak up and tell someone about it. Don't wait. And it's just, for the life of me, I don't understand how, y'all, I'm gonna be real, the dad was pissing me off, because he was like, he didn't want to face the fact of what was going on. But come to find out too, I think the dad kind of had an issue, and I believe his mom did too. But you know illness is a real thing. And like I said, a lot of young people are suffering from that. in today's society. That's why I was like, let me talk about this on my podcast because eh, I'm seeing more and more stories, and they don't always be quiet and standoffish, and people do things differently. Some people act out, which I believe is why you're seeing a lot of you young people act out and get in trouble, with the law, and you know have all this craziness going on. It could be their way of dealing with their issues. And in the end, the dad was like, when he finally got the picture, it was too late. He kept seeing him there, like, and like talking to him. It's like he found out more about him in his passing than he did in his time on earth. And that's awful. It's awful. It really is. It's awful. And so he kind of started blaming himself for what happened because like I said before, he was kind of like not getting it, and when he was trying to talk to him, he was kind of aggressive. But it's like you can't always approach people like that. And um I think the dad was so focused on trying to cover up his issues by working 24/7. I mean, he was one of those dads that were hardly ever at home. They came home, they ate dinner, they, yeah, gave high fives to the kids, how was your day? Oh, okay, really? Okay, yeah, going to bed. Because that's how long their days were. And that affects children. And it clearly affected, his son, on top of the son's issues, which, as I stated before, I believe the dad had issues as well. And so did the mother. Um, but that hits today's society. Um, I believe the movie was made last year. So yeah, don't cap on me, y'all. I'm a little late, but yeah, it was made in 2022. But it's a real good movie, and it teaches you to pay attention to your surroundings and pay attention to your children, pay attention to your loved ones, even for the people that don't have kids, but you have nieces and nephews or little cousins, that you're constantly around. Pay attention, because I believe that if they would have paid attention and got him the help that he was seeking, when he kept doing those cries for help, I believe he could have been saved. He could have gotten the help that he needed. And that brings me to one of the main reasons I wanted to talk about it was because I'm seeing so many stories, like when I'm doing research for the podcast and all that, I'm seeing so many stories of where these kids are getting younger and younger, and the violence is just out of control. Like, I seen a story where these 14-year-olds got on a bus and, tried to take the life of another young child. Just so happened the gun jammed. Thank you, Jesus. But now the bus driver that was on the bus, he doesn't even want to go back to work. It's like, Jesus Christ, what is going on? What is going on with people? And they're getting younger and younger. Pay attention to the signs, you guys. Pay attention to your children. Pay attention to your surroundings. Like, when I tell you guys, that movie really got me thinking. Like, we we got to do better, you guys. We really have to, because yes, that was a movie, but at the same time, it was spitting true facts. And things like this is really happening, and we may not be able to change everything, but we can do our part by keeping our eyes open, lending a helping hand, talk about it. And if the child or children don't want to talk about it, well, find somebody that they will talk to, because this cannot keep happening. It really can't. And it just, I it just it affects everybody, because like you can tell, like in the movie, after that happened, he just wasn't the father wasn't the same. He wasn't the same for his wife or his living child. He just wasn't the same, because he blamed himself. So, you know, I say all that to translate it to actual life, is like, people, stop just sitting back and ignoring the signs. Like, if you see someone, it doesn't even have to be a child, but like if you see someone is, crying out for help, be a listening ear. And if you can't be the one to listen, help them find someone who can. And no, you may not need to get professionals involved all the time. Maybe just you sitting there listening and letting them talk, maybe that will be therapeutic to them, and release some pressure from their minds and hearts and things like that. We must pay attention to the signs. And with that being said, I love you guys. I didn't want to keep you too long, but I did want to do that movie review. So if you guys have seen it, drop a comment and we can talk about it. You can tell me how you like the movie, what you would have done different, or like I said, if there's a topic that you want to talk about, you can let me know and we will get that set up. Or if it's a topic that I've already talked about but you wanted to put your opinion in, feel free to leave that in the comments. And like I said, if you haven't seen the movie, please watch it. It's really, it's an eye opener, because if you watch the movie and then compare it to what's going on, you will understand. And with that being said, I love you guys, and let's remember, we all have a purpose. So therefore, find your purpose, and if you haven't found it, it's okay. We will get there together. And let's remember, if you have found it, stand in it. Don't let anybody knock you off. And remember, we are all designed for a purpose. And I love you guys, and I will catch you next week.